I'm also pleased to see the time restrictions that have been placed upon the proposed site operations to ensure that it doesn't go late into the night or early in the morning, thus retaining the residential amenity of the wider town of Newhaven. So if I could get some clarification with regards to the air quality controls, and then I may well wish to come back, Madam Chairman, if I may. Thank you.
Yes, in terms of the measures in place, I mean, we don't have any measures at the moment. That's why we put the condition on, in order that we can, the applicant can then propose measures to mitigate dust, and we can either agree them or not. If that were to happen, then the site would be regularly monitored, and if we were to receive complaints about dust, then those complaints would be investigated. In terms of the concrete batching plant and any dust that may be associated with that, that would be regulated by the District Council under a Part B environmental permit, which is noted in the report.
Did you wish to come back?
Thank you very much. I will continue to listen to the debate and come to a conclusion. Thank you.
Cllr Daniel.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I understand the strength of local feeling. I understand the numbers of objectors. That doesn't surprise me terribly. We usually do get a lot of objections for industrial applications. They do not tend to be popular wherever they may be. But it's not the number of the objections, it's what is said in those and the pertinent planning issues that we have to take into consideration. It's not I think one of the speakers said about public opinion is against it. That's not how planning works. You might want it to be a test of public opinion. You might want it to be how many objections have we got. That's not what happens. So we need to set that slightly aside, but acknowledge the concerns. I tell you what I'm really concerned about. I think the people of Newhaven and Seaford, to some extent, have been totally conned by this clean green marine. It's poetic. It's nice, 3 words all together. But in planning terms, nobody's really done anything about it. All right? The neighbourhood plan doesn't apply to this area. And if it's in the neighbourhood plan, it's not even been submitted to Lewes District. Basically, if you're going to change the planning system, it's no good for local councillors in Newhaven and local people just say, this is what we want, this is our aspiration. It's got to go through the local plan process. It's got to be agreed. It's got to go through the inspector. It goes to public inquiry. That's what gives it status. And I was met with some placards coming in today saying, listen to local people, listen to Lewes District. Well, looking at this, we are looking at what Lewes District say in terms of their local plan. Now, I usually get blamed for most things on this committee every now and then, but I think when you have a look at this in detail, if you want the site to be safeguarded for something else, the Lewes District plan has to do that. It doesn't say, as it's not allocated for jobs. We just heard that from our head of planning. It's not, so if you wanted it to provide more jobs, that needs to be in the local plan. If you really want clean green marine as a principle for development, it's got to be agreed and it's got to be in the local plan. That is your difficulty. So whilst your local leaders, community leaders, councillors, whatever, have been tickling your tummies, if you like, over clean green marine, what they haven't actually done is put it into a plan. And if you look at the Lewes District plan, those words are not there. And that's what we have to base our planning decisions on. And if this was refused on that basis, and it went to an inspector, it would be thrown out straight away. Okay? And I have no doubt of that. And it's repeated several times through this. It's great to have aspirations. It's great to have slogans. But planning is based on hard work in terms of getting changes done to local plans. Sadly, the community tend not to get too involved in that stage. They get involved in local applications, but not in the local plan determination. So if you want to look at somebody and be happy about this, Don't look at Lewes District Planning Committee now they vote. I'm not surprised they voted against it and the Newhaven voted against it, because these are politicians who want you guys to elect them. That's what they do. All right? And that's the way the world works in part, which is one of the reasons why minerals and other things are delegated to the county to deal with. So I feel that there's been an element whereby people have been misled. I've seen it so many times, this clean green marine, and it's worthy, but it's, in planning terms, it doesn't exist. Now, if we're going to refuse something, it's got to be evidence-based. And whilst I accept people have strong opinions about everything else, you've got to have the evidence. And if you look at the evidence that's submitted in terms of dust and noise and everything else and transport, where is it? Why is it that when we come to this application and a previous application, those people who are saying they're not in favour of it are not proposing refusal with any detailed reasons? Because that's what you would have to do. And if you were proposing refusal with detailed reasons, you have to substantiate those things. So that is the problem that you actually have. You're in a planning system which you may not like, you may feel is undemocratic, but that's the way it works. And unless the government changes things dramatically, nothing much else is going to kind of happen. I'm always amazed, you know, when you go down to that site, that metal recycling, if that's the right phrase for it, that scrap heap on the wharf there is atrocious. Nobody mentions that. I haven't seen anything about that. It's got, I think it's permitted development because it's a wharf-related activity. But if you look at the appearance of the area, that's the really ugly thing that's in your face. All right? And sometimes then maybe you need to kind of focus on some of those aspects as well. Sorry.
Excuse me,
not
Councillor Daniel. Please, can you just listen? Thank you.
Basically, if you want to achieve regeneration, it's the Lewes local plan. Change that, talk to your county councillors, your district councillors, get them to put something in that. It needs to go to public inquiry, but that could happen. It takes a long time. It's not fast. It can't happen by magic. It can't be we want to see, because it's nice. All right? Otherwise, you'd have no industrial development anywhere in the country, because everywhere we'd like to be clean, green, and if they're on the coast, marine, because that's just a truism. Now, if you're looking at this application and you actually read everything and listen to what's said, I think they're struggling to find a reason not to grant it. Now, that's the basis. And basically, planning law basically says, all right, that basically you should approve it unless there are material reasons which would cause harm, basically. And on that basis, I think it may not be what you want, may not be what any of us want, but I don't see how, in planning terms, you could actually turn this down. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Councillor Daniel. Councillor Field. Excuse me, I just asked someone who acknowledged that she wasn't going to speak again. If anyone else does shout, I will ask them to be removed. We've done very well up till now, and as I said earlier, you may not like everything that's being said, but it's as much for the public out there as it is for you in here.
Yes, thank you. I would very much like to agree with Councillor Daniel that the planning system, as we know it, and not all of us love it, is not democratic. An attempt to make it more receptive to the public it seeks to serve was the instigation of local plans. And sadly, we see so often in other areas of our work where local plans aren't in effect yet, and developers seize the opportunity to slide in beforehand, knowing that there can be no objection because there's no local plan. But I wanted to talk about evidence very briefly, because Councillor Daniel said there is no evidence about dust and pollution and other effects. Well, of course there isn't, because the thing has not got planning consent yet and it has not been built. So you can never use that as an argument for turning it down simply because there's no evidence, because the evidence will not be there until or unless whatever is being proposed actually gets built, and then we can see the effect of what it causes, by which time, of course, it's too late. So we have to listen to both sides of the argument and make our judgment on that level of evidence, not actual, on the ground, breathing it in evidence.